I've been pro-Ukraine for a good 2 years. That is the most compelling argument I've ever heard for getting out of Ukraine. Do you concede that bad actors like Putin are essentially able to take over any sort of country that is not NATO, that US has no obligation to defend, and they can take over, invade, completely obliterate any country in their way? Like, is that like,
that is absolutely the case? Yes.
Okay, and you are.
Am I okay with that? No more than I'm okay with Saudi Arabia committing genocide in Yemen.
Sure.
So what do we do about that? Because we 100%, fund Saudi
and I'm
Arabia.
critical of that. I'm critical of that.
Do you think we should attack Saudi Arabia? Because
I don't think that we should attack Saudi Arabia, but maybe I think sanctions would be a good place to start.
We sell them military weapons that are being used.
We wouldn't do that under sanctions. I'm critical of selling military weapons to people committing genocide.
Okay, hold on. When we sell Saudi Arabia military weapons, like tanks and helicopters, they obviously rely on us for all the parts and all the maintenance. We have utter leverage over them.
Yeah.
If we stop selling them military weapons, who are they going to buy their military weapons from?
Oh, sure. Probably Russia. I see.
And then they will continue to commit genocide, except they'll be on Russia and China's side.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And the point I'm making there is anytime you invoke morality of like, oh, but we're allowing a country to invade the sovereign borders of another country. It's like the moral argument is, as sad as it is to say, it's impossible to act in a moral way when it comes to foreign policy in a lot of things.
I think that
which is why I do not find the argument compelling. Well, you're essentially letting Putin invade and take over a sovereign country. That is a reality we have to live in, just as we have to live in the reality that Saudi Arabia is committing genocide against Yemen, and there's very little we can do about it. And we were also we correctly supported Ukraine when Russia initially invaded them. We absolutely should have, and we did, send them military aid.
I think what I really appreciate about you is you acknowledge that Ukraine is basically the defenders, right? And Russia is very clearly the aggressors.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, I talked to a lot of conservatives, and maybe it muddies the water a little bit, where they're like, yeah, what did Russia do? Or like crazy lefties who are like, yeah, they're just denazifying Ukraine. And I'm like, you guys are psycho. This is insane to get like morally sure that Russia's morally just in this.
I do think the issue in the Donbass and Crimea become complicated because I believe there is some level of the people in the Donbass wanted Russian annexation and are largely Russian speaking. I don't know enough to make that the brunt of my argument. I need to look into that. Sure. But my broader issue is Ukraine is we are not under any military treaty obligation to defend Ukraine.
Sure.
If it was NATO, if Russia invaded NATO, I'm kind of like, you know what? We have to fucking boots on the ground potentially.
Sure.
Now, there is a broader issue of I do question NATO's necessity nowadays, but the fact that NATO exists as it is like we have something to do. What I utterly reject is this idea that, well, if we allow them to take over Ukraine, then the next thing they'll do is invade Poland or whatever. I'm like, they are barely winning the war against Ukraine when we're just offering them proxy assistance.
Well, I think,
but if they went into open war with the entirety of NATO, with the U.S., who spends more than the next 9
100%.
countries combined in military spending, the idea that Russia is going to be able to successfully conquer Europe in an open conflict when they're barely succeeding in Ukraine against our proxies,
I think
I have no belief in that argument whatsoever.
I think my problem with this argument, I agree with it largely. I think my problem is assuming that Putin is a rational actor. Like maybe he needs a little bit of a jolt in the face to say, oh, I can't even take over fucking Ukraine. I thought this was going to be a 3-day blitzkrieg. Like it's been a 2-year war. I can't, I obviously can't. Maybe siding with China maybe isn't the right idea. Maybe like this, maybe I'm on the wrong side of the war right now. And maybe I need to figure it out.
Do you think he's a rational actor?
I don't think Putin's a rational actor. No. I don't think invading Ukraine was good for his geopolitical goals. Like he
obviously, yes, he fucking lost the war. I do.
No, even if he took it, he pisses off and scares every single one of his allies. No one is looking at them favorably. The only like real military power is like China, and like even then, it's a shifty relationship. I don't think it's good for him. I don't think it's smart for him. I don't know why he's doing it. It seems like just kind of this. Like obviously, bad one's going to be on your side.
As someone who regards rationality as not being based, because I believe anti-intellectualism is based, rationality does not mean good. Just because something is rational doesn't mean good. I do see a rational argument for Putin annexing Crimea and the Donbass if they're Russian speaking and they demand it. Also, Crimea is an access channel to the Black Sea, so there's a very strategic reason why.
I just
Putin would want it. It's wrong. It's certainly invading is wrong. But again, it's like wrong morally. It's like, okay, genocide in Yemen. We're not about to fucking
what I'm saying is
fight Saudi Arabia.
genociding Yemen is also a completely irrational act. Like the correct.
That's more irrational than the.
The
You know what? I don't even want to.
rational-
Yes, you're right. They're both wrong. I don't know enough to comment and say one's less rational.
The
than the other.
rational actor is to be a soft power like the U.S., where it's like, okay, gotcha. How we assert our military control is not actually invading the country.
Does coups and manipulates countries from behind the scene, and
I mean, yeah, and I'm gonna
countries.
morally object to that, but at least fulfills their geopolitical goals. Does that make sense? Like, I have to say,
Sure.
Hey, if the U.S. performs a coup and can do it under the scenes, that worked in their favor, and it's wrong. Okay, so I agree with your division, but I'm saying what Putin is doing is both irrational and wrong.
Sure. Well, so let's on this point of Ukraine, I will genuinely be curious. We can talk again sometime in a few weeks or something. I'm genuinely curious. I spent about 30 minutes asking ChatGPT to come up with the best arguments against the Saudi Arabia thing I just said, because in the fact that you said it's the best argument you've heard is like it's the best argument I've heard, which is why I believe it. And I haven't.
Have you heard this from anyone else?
Yeah, it was on Bill Maher,
a
Republican congressperson, Hunter something. He's like this kind of talking like I think he's Southern some kind. He's a very cringy guy, and he was being interviewed, and they were laughing at him, as it's tend to happen with Republicans because a lot of them are cringy. But Bill Maher brought the point. It's like, well, why are we funding Saudi Arabia, which is committing all kinds of acts? And Hunter's like, well, we sell them tanks, we sell them military weapons, which means they rely on us for all the parts and stuff. So we exercise influence over them. If we stop doing that, well, they're still going to commit all the genocide that, is a much deeper cultural religious thing potentially. And they're just going to be in Russia's favor, which will make everything worse. So it's a purely realpolitik perspective. And it's like, but I don't see a way out of it.